We got ourselves Team 1 together with Blur, Gorge, X as an Unholy DK. We got ourselves Broton as a Boomy, with Christina on that Feral, with KYB as a Shadow Priest, and Var as a Survival Hunter. Versus, we got ourselves Big Boss Chick as a thick Chicago, as a Panda Enhancement with a big old gorilla hands, dude. Who doesn't love a woman with big gorilla hands? You know what I mean? We got ourselves Clickbait, we got ourselves Daedra, we got ourselves Blizz Buff as a cool tier in Arcane. Oh, boys. As well as Yandex. There's gonna be a Big Boss Chicago versus Broton. Has himself full incarnation rolling. Was that a big convoke that I missed? Hope not. Broton tried to get himself some big Davies out in the open. Big Boss Chick actually trying to see if he can get himself a big Zaps. Is he? I was gonna say, is he elemental? Because he came out Flame Shock trying to get himself Stormkeeper. Nope, enhance. His full-blown enhance. Big Frosty Wolves are up and running. That's gonna be Cycle trying to get set up for Broton. Try to keep the range on Chicago. It's gonna go for the big chain lightning zaps. It's gonna be a lockdown with an incap. Frost Shock, Night Vision Decision while he's standing in the stun. Oh my god, that's a lot of Enhancement Shaman damage. And Big Boss Chick does himself a big healer than need to. Ursul's Vortex is going to keep him at bay. Does walk out of the Ursul's Vortex completely. Earth Elemental is up. Broton trying to avoid the Big Boss as much as possible. Big Chain Lightning out of Big Boss. I don't really know if Chicago wanted to go for Chain Lightning there. Hibernate onto the Ghost, so does dip out of it for a second to make sure you get some damage rolling. Still continuing to Chain Lightning. I don't know if he actually wants to Chain Lightning or not. Going to be a Convoke out of Broton, but Chicago already had him on the ropes, dude. That's a Night Fae Enhance. I like it, dude. That full Enhance setup was actually very well set up. Var is up next. Got himself full Necrolord setup versus Boss Chick. Is going to rotate the Chimeric Poison with a Silence into a healing reduction, damage reduction poison. So it starts off as a slow poison, into a silence poison, into a healing reduction, damage reduction, like a poison of weakness. Actually, they're probably like Spider Sting, Serpent Sting, Wound Poison or something, or Paralytic. I don't really know what they're called. They have some names for them, but it's part of the Chimeric Poison, which is a minute CD. So he's playing that as kind of like a CC utility, defensive, pressure, poison. It's an interesting bit. It can really allow you to turn it around on the enemy. Ghosts are up for Chicago versus Var is going to have himself the Slime Shield proccing to try to help him deal with the damage of Boss. Chicago does give himself a bit of a heal, but that Fae continue to get lightning bolts into Var, trying to get as much Maelstrom as he can. It's going to be a bit of a Hunter's Bandage to try to heal up. Var going for the Battlemaster Trinket, trying to get some offensive pressure rolling. Boss does go into a wall with Ghost Wolves, and those Ghost Wolves actually turn their attention onto the pet. Sounds in Chicago with the weakness poison after. It looks like he's continuing to just hit the pet for the hunter. Looks like he's going to just continue to focus him down. Maybe hoping that Var starts focusing on this pet. Maybe it's an acceleration to heal his pet at some point. But he's going to have to maintain that men pet as best as possible. Chicago still under quite a bit of pressure from the hunter. Actually, quite a lot of pressure. Trying to go for a stun lockdown onto Var. Super low in health. The Death Chakra does take him out. Oh! My goodness, what ledger is Var running? I'm actually wondering. What ledger is this man rolling? Blizz Buff is going to be up next as an Arcane Mage. Kultira, the big boy. He got himself a sack of goodies and a lightsaber. I really like this Mog though. A lot of green, a lot of yellow, lots of vibrant colors. Is that Seawork on an alt? Trying out, messing with Arcane. It is getting some missiles up and running. Not playing the triple shield legendary, as you can see. Otherwise, you see a fire shield as well as a frosty shield. So most likely is playing the Harmony legendary, where Arcane missiles do boost the damage of your barrage. So if you're able to set him up, playing that Venthier, so he's going to be pretty aggressive. Polymorph around the corner. Var does go for Feign Death, continue to sling nades over Blizz Buff. Touch of the Magi is going to set up. Is going to have the Chimeric Poison coursing through him. Touch of the Magi is at least getting set up either way. Needs to get himself a nice setup. Arcana Sphere, as Touch of the Magi is up onto Var. Trinket coming up, avoids the Arcana Sphere, more missiles flying, maybe with a big barrage at the end. Massive damage onto the Hunter. Feign Death, actually death right after. Oh my god, that was huge damage out of the Arcane Mage. He missed the massive orb. However, the rest of the damage went through. That was nuts. KYB actually able to play the game without Giga dampening? What? KYB might actually be able to get himself a bit of a game. I'm hoping we see some damage out of him, some auto towns, maybe a cleaner setup. We'll actually see the Megalomania. Because we don't really, it doesn't really look like, does Sorrento Madness even have an animation? I don't think Serenity Madness actually has an animation, but we'll know if KYB is using the new honor talent for Megalomania, which gives Serenity Madness and modifies it, where it doesn't actually kill you. It brings you to 35% health. If it's like at under 35% health, it'll be above. Bigger canister getting set up. Does have a greater fade for it. Faded it out of last second. Not a bad setup. As Blizz Buff try to go for a decent setup. The images are up and KYB is going to get mounted up. Try to see if he can catch up to the mage. The images are all over him. Could actually dot him up if he wants to. But looks like he's going to save a lot of damage for Blizz Buff instead. Stuns him. Maybe he can go for a big setup. Shattered Void Nova coming out. It's just crashing everywhere. Buff does walk into it. Stealing the PI from KYB. Used to dispel the PI off of Blizz Buff immediately. Otherwise, he's going to get himself a big setup. Trying to remove it. Big Shadowlands is using Megalomania. So he's able to move while casting. So he's able to get himself some heals while casting spells. Big Haymaker, Touching Magic gets set up a Blizz Buff with big missiles. Barrage right after. Does interrupt KYB. Silencer fall right after. Does he even get opportunity to maybe even get himself a Disperse? Try to see if he can survive. Does recover a little bit of health. I think Megalomania might have actually put his health back up. Because Megalomania, at the end of your Serenity Madness, you come out with 35% health. So if you're under, I think it gives you a heal. If you're over, it puts you to 35, which does reduce your heal. So that's an interesting one. Trigger for KYB does get a silence on a Blizz Buff. Probably rotating more CC. Stun right after this. You have the normal blink. Void Eruption trying to come out. Actually delayed the Void Eruption by a hair. You probably could have just let that happen. There's going to be Shadow Crash around the corner. But not the big Shadow Crash that needs it. He needs to get another stun to Blizz Buff and maybe go for a big Shadow Crash just standing on top of him or something. Potentially. If he's able to. Not going to be seeing that stun for a bit. It's like a 45-second cooldown, I believe. By the way, I got my Priest up and running to max level. I just need to get another Demon Hunter up to max level, and then we'll have one of every character that's playable. And I'll probably be doing some free time Demon Hunter. Void Eruption up next with KYB. Does he have the Eruption? It looks like he did have eruptions at the wall. Actually, Blizz Buff walked on top of him and he got hit by a couple of them. He actually stood next to it and it crashed on top of him. That's actually so interesting. If you mind control somebody and then you stun them, you go for Shadow Crash when they're next to the wall. Could that be a thing? Could that be a potential play? Trying to see if he can get a heal. Does get interrupted by Blizz Buff. Is still able to keep moving. At some point, Megalomania should be available and you should be able to get that big coursing damage of the Serenity Madness, extra resources, as well as movement while casting. Gonna be PI, Blizz Buff. Does he go to steal it? Looks like he isn't going to steal it just yet. KYB is eventually gonna silence him with those Mirrors of Torment. Looks like all three mirrors are still on him. Trying to dispel it, does get to remove him. Blizz Buff did steal the PI. I thought he didn't. Trying to get himself under Canisphere onto KYB is going to be able to get hit by it, dude. Nothing he can do about it. That thing hits the walls. Missiles flying, Shadow Crusher on the corner. KYB does get clipped by that missile. Does get interrupted on Shadow. Maybe Big Barrage right after. Does he get to use it? Oh, he's inside the sight. Maybe Barrage. I don't think he was able to do so. KYB is still okay. Greater Faded that touches the Magi. Both the Mage and the Shadow Priest are in an interesting situation. Both of them are kind of lowish on health. KYB trying to see if he can port. He's trying to be a bit aggressive here. Has a shield with a Draven Soulbind. And Blizz Buff does get himself an Invis into a Poly with a bit of food. That's going to be a stun by KYB. Trying to get dots up and running. Very interesting. I really do want to try to see if Shadow Crash or Shadow Volley, like if you were next to the wall, does it just all spawn next to the wall? Because it looked like it wasn't going everywhere. I know he's running the auto talent, but it didn't look like it was going anywhere. It looked like it was all at the wall. So if you were to like silence or stun them when they're next to the wall and you use that as instant cast, maybe they could take a lot of damage. Blizz Buff getting big damage onto KYB. Massive blast. Arcane Missile on the corner. KYB trying to get himself a bit of a heal. Trying to get interrupted. Does he get to him? Blizz Buff is on his tail. Trying not to let him get any single casts off. He does have a trick in case CC comes around the corner. Does he get to it? Stun? Into an interrupt. I think it's locked down for KYB. I think it's over. Unless someone gets a heal. Oh, that is so rough. That was actually a rough one, man. Blood Gorge is going to be, by the looks of it, up next. That was a tough one between the Shadow Priest and the Mage at the end, though, dude. But Blizz Buff got some damage behind him, man. That Arcanosphere and the arcane damage. Blood Gorge is, oh, interrupted the Arcanosphere. Interesting. Bricked up his pet just to make sure that is happening. That's crazy. But it's going to be Blizz Buff trying to see if he gets some damage onto Blood Gorge. Does get gripped and Trinket coming out. And Buff trying to get himself a setup onto Blood Gorge. Does go for a poly. The Army of the Dead just joined the fight. Does he get to invis it off? He does get to invis it off. I think the pets still know he's there. Yep, they looked at him. They saw him. Big ol' Nova around the corner. Pets are back in the gameplay. And Buff can actually use the ghoul to build up the barrage damage, so he will have power behind his burst. Could always ice block. Still holding on to that. Only at 38% dampening, so he's going to feel some pressure from lack of healing, but he still can do something about it. If anything, missiles flying, trying to get disrupted on Arcane, which is perfect for him. Blood Gorge does go for a big old grippy hand. Sorry, swapping the wrong person. Ice block for Buff. That's going to be a flesh grab. Buff does get a heal while an ice block, so he's going to be able to get himself a bit of a heal catch up. We're in a good spot for now, boys. Invis for Pliss Buff, and is going to get a poly onto Blood Gorge, who has control of his pet. Yes, he does. Interrupt into a stun. Has control of his pet while polymorph. I was going to say, like, pretty sure he does, but I'm not sure. Does he? Potentially. Big Haymaker onto Blood Gorge. Does get a stun off it. IBF and that Haymaker. Silence on the Buff. He's in a bad spot. Unless he gets a heal for Temporal right now. It's over. Does get a heal for Temporal all the time, but it wasn't enough. Blood Gorge does end up taking him out. Playing the anti-caster build. Daedra is up next. Playing that Shadow build. As the Demonology, he's still sticking to his guns as a Shadow playstyle. Does get the pet that he could summon. Full Fellord up and running. Tyrant rolling in. Does he get the Obelisk? He does drop down the Fell Obelisk, and Blood Gorge, so it was nothing to do with it. It wants nothing to do with any of these pets. Those pets are going to be cheering at him from behind the pillar. It's going to be Vile Fiends coming down from behind the pillar too. Actually, lots of damage. Blood Gorge dropping down the antimatic zone. You kind of want to stand as a Warlock next to your Fellord. You want him to do all the damage in the world. That Obelisk was kind of a bit of damn too. Daedra making sure to Void Elf out of there. Blood Gorge does survive the first onslaught of demons, but they are in a very short CD. Stun onto Daedra by Blood Gorge. Is looking to get himself more damage rolling versus Daedra into a grip, trying not to let him get any cast off at all. What Covenant is Daedra actually? And I'm starting to wonder. Is he Necrolord? Big old slappy hand slabs the Warlock around. Down he goes. Yandex getting gripped in, dude. Unholy versus Unholy. Yandex coming in fully fresh with full cooldowns, while Blood Gorge is actually the one under pressure. No defenses left here. Maybe some offensive power, but not too much. Blood Gorge is tasting the taste of his own medicine right now. Blood Gorge does have a little bit better control with his pets. He isn't a holy main, like the charge with his pet as well as the stun. He's a bit better at controlling it. Yandex, I don't think he really uses his pet abilities too often. Flash cut up for Blood Gorge, might be able to maybe do something. Yandex does have a bit of a lag, so he tried to go for that interrupt, but he does have some weird delay. I think this is a Russian servers on PTR. Does get Chain of Ice into Blood Gorge, unless Blood Gorge has a way to counteract this or catch up in health. He's going to be behind. Yandex sacrificing his pet in order to give himself a bit of heal. Blood Gorge tried to slow Yandex down, letting the pets do a lot of the damage, using Death Goals offensively versus Yandex. Does get himself hit with a silence. Yandex trying to make some pressure happen. Does Blood Gorge have any ways to heal? Stunned by Yandex, has a Lichborn Fleshcraft. Actually, just Fleshcrafted in his face. Probably could have just ended the duel in that stun, but he decided not to. Maybe he's trying to play up for the next deal, playing extra defensive. Blood Gorge does get to grip in the ghoul. Yandex exploding that ghoul and does go for the crawl. With the, what is it, the clawing shadows from a distance. Christina's up next, dude. On the new mount, trying to do a nice friendly wave to Yandex. Just couldn't get it off, dude. Just couldn't give him a nice wave. Thorns is up. Yandex does have AMS for it. I don't think he's coming out of that bite. And Click Butt is up next. Forced into this duel with that mean Convoke. He has to play now. He has to make a choice. I wonder what Onitons this man is running. Tricking it out of the root into a Metamorphosis. Try to see if he can catch up to Christina. But Christina does catch a bit of a reset. I don't know if Clickbutt can do much. It might be able to get a one-shotter onto Christina. Because Dampen is so high, I don't think this man can really get that much healing at this point. But we'll see, right? We'll see. Stun to Christina. I-beam into a maim. Does not have a trinket this time. I think it's over. I think it was over before it even began. Yep. Super unfortunate. I wonder what kind of Onitons he was trying to bring into this duel. But yo, dude, Pliss buff the Arcane Mage Master, dude. The big burst out of Arcade. Huge on PTR, man. Huge.